Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. It's Tuesday, not Monday, but couldn't get the show done yesterday, and this is a major. There's no skipping Monday Match Analysis. Actually, in the past, for the first Monday of a major, I actually have skipped the show, but I've said before there's no show. In this case, I've decided, and we'll make this a tradition, the Monday of a major, or the show of in the beginning of a major, will always be a comment response Q&A type deal, because I always have my preview videos and I get great comments on those. So this will be the routine moving forward. So that's what I have in store. But first, I do want to talk about something that means a lot to me, and that is what we witnessed last night with David Ferrer's last match in a major. He will retire next year, probably after playing, like, I forget, he said there's a few tournaments in Spain that he wants to play before he retires, but this is pretty much it for David Ferrer. And for me, this felt like Ferrer's retirement because I've watched him so much at the U.S. Open. In fact, for a few years when I was ball boying there, if I could help it, I wouldn't miss a single David Ferrer match. I would be there for each and every one. So to see Ferrer walk off the court at the U.S. Open for the last time, it really hit me what he's meant to me. And I think that anything that the sport of tennis gives me, in a lot of ways, I owe to David Ferrer, because he's the person who inspired me and I looked up to, and everything I did on the tennis court, and the reason why I believed in myself was because of him. So I did everything in my power to be as much like him as possible. And a lot of that was in the mind and in the work ethic, and like I said, my belief in myself sort of came from him. Because, and first I'll give you kind of the reason, and then I'll show you a video of what my forehand looks like, so you guys can see how similar it is to the way David hits it technically. Ferrer was the ultimate talent maximizer. Physically, he is undersized at about 5'9", and he's a really good athlete, but still undersized nonetheless. And when you look at the undersized players on tour, usually they have impeccable racket skills. A guy like Fabio Fognini, who's about 5'10", was blessed with like Roger Federer-esque racket skills. Ferrer got neither of those, and the biggest attributes that helped him in his game were number one, his ability to give everything he has on every single point, and it's something that I've talked about Rafa Nadal doing, and I can't stress this enough. It is so hard to play that way, and it's so hard to play against an opponent who's able to achieve that. Ferrer, besides his habit of smoking cigarettes, he maximized his fitness, and the way he allowed himself to suffer on the court was so essential, because there were no easy ways out. He didn't have a big serve. He was aggressive with his forehand, but it wasn't such a big weapon that he could end points in a way where he wasn't able to build up to it. So he had to play long, grueling rallies over and over and over again. And to do that, you have to, A, have the physical fitness. Two, you have to develop your shot tolerance in terms of, just your consistency. And then three, most importantly, you need to have the ability to suffer on the court. So I worked on all those things, and to me, when I saw myself maximizing my potential, what I saw, or what I thought I could do, was I thought that I could emulate what David Ferrer does. So here is a video of my forehand, and at some point I'll show you guys more footage of, I guess, my game. But as you can see, the take back, and this looks a little bit laggy on my screen. I don't know if it's laggy for you guys, but my take back I never brought it up high. I never brought it behind my head, right? I kept it here and then straight down to here, and then I tried to get as much as I could with the hip rotation. Watch my front legs. Watch them switch. So when I start, I'll hit it open stance, and I got to shuffle back here because the ball, if I didn't shuffle back, I would have had it too high. So I shuffle back if you watch my feet. So for this one, watch my feet. Shuffle back a little bit. And then if you watch my hips combined with my feet, you'll see my left leg starts out in front, but then my hip rotation will bring my right leg in front. You see that? So those are all things that I got from Ferrer. My grip is the same as Ferrer. My backhand looks a little different. My serve looks a little different, but the forehand is a shot that I really tried to emulate him. So all I kind of want to say, and David won't watch this, but thank you, David, for everything you've done, and I hope that you guys were able to appreciate his career as much as I did. Okay, let's get to the comments. I'm ready. Very sad, but also the way he ended, I'll touch real quick on the Nadal match first. In a way, it's a terrible way to go out, but also I think what it shows to me is that, he killed himself out there, and that's what he did. Ferrer played until he could no longer play. He emptied the tank, gave everything he had, and by the end, he was up a break on Rafa Nadal, albeit down in the match, but he could not continue because when you play that physical brand of tennis, eventually your body will have all that it could take. So in a way, a tough way to end, but also in a way a fitting way to end. But I'll bring what Ferrer gave to me. I'll have that forever. So that's kind of the influence that a player can have. And if anyone has a story similar to mine, where kind of a player you try to emulate, and once you're emulating a player, that player is a part of you. I'll play tennis my whole life. Ferrer will always be a part of me. That's kind of how I feel. So that's that. If you have anything similar, share that in the comment section, because I'd be interested in that. Kind of what players do people kind of take from? All right, first comment now. Hi, Gill. I want your opinion about this study of a professor of the Hope University of Liverpool regarding draw fixing in men's tennis. She studied all the major draws from 2008 to 2011, and he, okay, is it she or he? Whatever, that's besides the point. And he found out that 12 consecutive times on fast surfaces, Djokovic had been drawn in Federer's half. Amazing and impressive, but above all, impossible from a statistical perspective. So, impossible wouldn't be accurate. Minuscule odds, and I did read the article. The article was linked at the bottom of that comment. The odds are really like 0.000 something, so a really crazy number. I don't really want to say anything on this because I don't know. And while the numbers can be damning, there's just not enough. I almost feel like you couldn't get away with that. So for example, the U.S. Open has in the past done their draw ceremony in front of everyone, in front of the media. And I think that's how most tournaments do it. So how is the draw fixed when they're literally showing us how they do it? There are ways. There are ways to get around everything. I mean, the Russians switched out doping samples in the Olympics. I mean, intricate plans can be made. But this study involved all of the majors. So, are all of the majors, all four, fixing draws. There was a separate study that Outside the Lines did, an ESPN program hosted by Bob Lee, that only looked at the U.S. Open and found similar results. What I would like to know is it an inevitability that if you look at certain factors in a string of tennis tournaments, will you always be able to find a coincidence that has extremely low probability? So in this case, it's Federer and Djokovic, which are very, prominent names, but I wonder, maybe it's always the case that you can find something of that probability, of that low of a probability. I said I didn't want to really go into it, and I did. So the point is, I don't know. It's strange. I don't know what to think. Here's what I do think. Here's what I can say with conviction. The whole randomization of the draw should cease to exist. When you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense. And in almost all sports, this doesn't exist. In the playoff systems in American sports, the 1 seed plays the 8 seed, the 2 seed plays the 7 seed, the 3 seed plays the 6 seed, the 4 seed plays the 5 seed. There is no randomization there. You could do the same thing for the top 16 seeds. Remember, the seeds are going from 32 to 16, so it will be 16. So the 1 would draw, well, I don't know if I would do this wrong, but the 1 would always have the 8 in the quarterfinals. Or I don't know if the 1 would have the 16, then the 8, and then the 4, which would make it pretty important to get the 1 seed. The 2 would get the 17, the 7, and the 3. Now, even if I'm jumbling up the way a bracket works, maybe it would have to work slightly different. But in essence, what I'm saying is you could create a system in which it is not random what seeds you draw. There is no reason for it to be random. And then, yes, you could get unlucky in terms of getting, let's say, you're the 1 seed, and in the first round, you have to play an unseeded player that's ranked 30 in the world. That can happen. That is possible. So that is the part that's random. But in terms of Djokovic, the 6 seed playing Federer, the 2 seed in the quarterfinals, that doesn't need to be random. The 2 seed should play the 7. Wouldn't that make sense? And I'm not just saying that because, I don't know, I want Federer to get an easy draw. I will say that for any time. That's how it should be. What do you guys think of that? Katrina Luna Di Camella, or Di Camea, it's probably Di Camea. Here's an interesting fact for analysis. Neither of them, okay, speaking of she, I believe, is talking about Nadal and Djokovic. Neither of them has won more than 3 straight matches against each other before the other win the next. This excluded 4 matches in the beginning when young Novak just started. So if that was an indication of the rivalry, then as Nole's fan, would we still want these two facing each other in the U.S. Open? So this is a great stat. Very interesting. I didn't fact check it, but I'm assuming it's correct. That Novak has never beaten Rafa 3 times in a row, and Rafa has never beaten Novak 3 times in a row. That's a testament to how close these guys play each other and how great these two players are. But would I take it into account when it comes to Djokovic playing Nadal in a potential U.S. Open final? I wouldn't. I would tend to ignore that kind of thing and write it off as coincidence. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that. I don't have anything else for that. But an interesting stat, which is pretty much why I included it in there, because it is very interesting. Zest for Life. Great analysis. I agree with the projected quarterfinal and semifinal winners. In the final, I give Rafa a slight edge. Even at his best, Nole has not had an easy time at the U.S. Open. On the other hand, the U.S. Open is Rafa's second most successful slam, 51-49 to Rafa. So I think 51-49 is the percentage, just to make that clear. Okay, so let's talk about this. Rafa has had more success in the U.S. Open than Novak. What I'll say to that is Novak has lost in a lot of finals. And once again, and I hate to do this twice in a row, But if you have a guy who's losing in a lot of finals, that is likely, once again, coincidence. A player losing in, a disproportionate number of finals on a surface that suits them, unless it's like Federer losing to Rafa in the French Open final year after year after year from, I don't know, 2004 to 2008. That obviously, no coincidence, there was a better player. But in Novak's case, losing twice to Rafa, who he beats on hard court a lot. Obviously he wins some, he loses some. Losing to Stan. And I believe also losing to Roger in a final. To me, that's just Novak happens to have a bad record in U.S. Open finals. People love to read into stats like this, but really, when it goes the other way, I'll say the same thing. Why has Novak won so many Australian Opens? Coincidence. He's great at the Australian Open, just like he's great at the U.S. Open, but he's just won more finals. If you're going to be in the final consistently, you have a chance, and that's it. You might win the final, you might lose the final. We are talking about small sample sizes here. 5 to 8 matches, that's a small sample size against great players. A few more points. I'd have Kyrios as the dark horse in the fourth quarter, easily. I would love to see a Kyrgios-Djokovic quarterfinal. Khachanov has never won a set versus Rafa. No reason to believe he has more of a chance to upset Rafa than Kyrgios versus Federer. So I don't think that. I think that Kyrgios has a way better chance to beat Federer than Khachanov has against Rafa. A lot of people are disagreeing with me that Khachanov is dangerous. I stand by what I said. Hopefully, Khachanov doesn't blow it in his next match. The same could be said for Rafa. And they get to play. I think it'll be a close match, and I think Rafa needs to play well. I'm not going to go lament the reasons again because I've already done that twice. And we're going to talk about Kyrgios' chances to upset Federer a little bit later because there's a comment that touches upon that. If Wawrinka is your dark horse in the second quarter, then I think it necessarily follows that Dimitrov, seated higher than Isner, should be given precedence for an upset alert. That match has already happened. Wawrinka did indeed win. There's a specific reason I didn't have Dimitrov as the upset alert because I knew that in reality, Stan is the favorite. And Stan indeed was the betting favorite in that match. So I didn't want to say this guy's on upset alert. Meanwhile, they're the underdog. So I have John Isner in that quarter due to his fatigue problems over the summer. I have Isner in that quarter as the upset alert. So I hope I cleared that up. Grafton Reed says, what you guys are missing in the Joker-Fed Cincy match is that the score should have been 6-2, 6-2. Roger still only lost each set by a single break and played awful. What does that say about Joker's game? A few things to unpack here. First of all, you're putting too much into the score. To me, it wasn't a close match. It was 6-4, 6-4. 6-4, 6-4 sometimes can be a very close match. It could be two tight sets. If Roger Federer had break points, for example, a lot of break points, if it felt more back and forth, if the breaks came later in the set, if Roger had more opportunities, then I could say it was a tight match. But it was a 6-4, 6-4 where Roger never felt in it. So I don't think it was a close match. So you're saying, oh, it should have been 6-2, shouldn't have been close the way Roger was playing. I don't agree with that. I don't think it was close. I thought that Novak beat him pretty handily. And then the second point is Roger played awful. He didn't play well, but there is a tendency, way too prominent of a tendency, for people to say so-and-so played awful. Normally, they support that player. So when the player loses, they want to say instead of kind of giving the opponent credit, they like to say he played awful. Federer, awful is too strong. He didn't play well. But like Djokovic against Taro Daniel at Indian Wells, that's awful. You know what I mean? So that's the difference there. Okay, let's go to the next one now. All right. Marcos Ferran Nagado. I still think Cilic, if not upset early, has an edge over Zverev, but we'll see. And Delpo's quadrant is the most unpredictable to me, especially depending on his resistance/fitness. Cilic versus Zverev. I have a hunch Cilic, once again, I have a feeling this is one of the upsets I'm picking. I'm thinking maybe he doesn't make it to the quarterfinal to play Sascha Zverev. I think that Tiafoe might beat him. I actually thought that Chopel might beat him, and Chopel was up 5-1 in the first set. Now, Chopel was a long shot, so this was just kind of a flyer pick. But Chopel was up 5-1 and started really, really struggling with the heat and couldn't even finish the match. So, but in terms of Zverev and Cilic as a matchup, I would agree with you that I think that Zverev could get too passive against a guy like Marin Cilic, and Cilic could take it to him. And that wouldn't be good. Because against Cilic, if you're an elite defender, you can force Cilic into errors. Sascha Zverev is not. The other option is, if you can put Cilic on the defensive. He's not strong defensively at all. Now, it's difficult to do, but when Rafa Nadal or Federer or Djokovic play Cilic, that's what you'll see. You'll see Cilic being put on the defensive. So Sascha would need to do that, and I agree with you. It's not a great matchup for Sascha because if you, in a neutral baseline rally, if you're passive against Cilic, Cilic will take the lead in a rally. Think about a fight. Cilic will swing first, and if he doesn't err, that's a big edge to Cilic. I agree with you about Delpo's quadrant. I think that Delpo's quadrant is the most unpredictable. Now, he's looking pretty fit. He destroyed Donald Young, which is no surprise, because Donald Young is not playing at a high level at all. I even watched him in qualies and in his first round of qualies, and he's just not playing at a very high level. So that's no surprise. But in practice, I'm pleasantly surprised with how he's hitting over his two-handed backhand. And if you look up the YouTube channel after you watch this video, Love Tennis, you can see they've posted a video of Del Potro practicing with Sascha Zverev, and I do like the way that Del Potro is hitting over his backhand. So that's really good. But at the same time, I think Stan has a shot at coming out of that quadrant. In fact, I think that if Stan makes it to Del Potro, he's got a really good chance. And then, of course, if John Isner has enough wind in his sails, I loved 2018 John Isner. How he was playing in Miami, how he was playing at Wimbledon. I loved that guy. So if he's not tired, I think that he can make a U.S. Open semifinal. I'm just concerned that he doesn't have enough gas, and that's what's so unfortunate about the lack of that fifth set tiebreak. Next one. Jeffrey Kaufman says, if Nadal and Djokovic do meet in the finals, one important factor that could help one or the other is how many hours on the court they have spent their first 6 matches. If Nadal played only 2 5-setters and Djokovic played 4 5-setters or vice versa, that could be the difference between winning and losing. I gotta resist on this one. I don't know if that's true, because if you saw how Novak got through Wimbledon, if you saw how Novak got through Cincinnati, you would know that Djokovic is having a lot of trouble right now winning easily and keeping his top form against weaker opponents. The thing is, it hasn't mattered when he plays top-of-the-line opponents. He's just stepped up his game. Whether that be his matches early in the year on clay against Kei Nishikori, the final in Queens against Cilic, I won't go down the list. The point is, Djokovic has played his best tennis when it matters, and I don't know why that wouldn't continue. And then for Rafa, once again, he's so fit that unless he starts dealing with pain later in the tournament, which is always a possibility for Rafa, and it's been so good this year, luckily, since he missed time at the beginning of the year, unless he starts to develop some aches and pains, In terms of fatigue, Rafa will probably be fine. So this is something that could be an edge, but probably not. If they met in the finals, I probably wouldn't read too much into this. And then last comment before I go, who do you pick in the possible Federer-Kyrgios match? Also from Jeffrey Kaufman. A close match is what I pick, and once again, Kyrios has to get there. He just beat Radu Albit. Kyrios all summer. I didn't like his summer because first of all there were retirements, and Kyrios is like a guy who consistently has retirements, which is it's a terrible thing, really. Doesn't mean you're a terrible person, but if you want to consistently compete on the tour, to have to retire frequently is a terrible thing. And then when he wasn't retiring, I still didn't see him focus throughout a match. He can't focus throughout an entire match. So even against a guy like Del Potro, who he played in Cincinnati, he locked in for 2 sets. He focused for 2 sets. And everyone was saying, and he won one of the sets, and everyone was saying, okay, here we go, Kyrios, once again, he's playing a great opponent, he focuses, and he competes. Yeah, but he still couldn't focus in the 3rd set. So I don't like that. Now, Arthur Ashe Stadium against Roger Federer, it's the kind of match that Kyrios gets up for. And I gotta tell you, he's crushing his 1st and 2nd serves. Absolutely destroying them. He's hitting them 140. His motion is so fluid. It's unbelievable, his service motion. I mean, it's as fluid as they come. So he's serving great. I think when he's playing his best, he's playing really well. But against Roger Federer in a match where the margins are going to be really slim, and it's all about levelness. That's where Federer gets the edge over Kyrgios. Levelness. So I think that it's very possible that Kyrios wins tiebreaks in this match. But the matches that don't go to tiebreaks, I give the edge to Federer because I think that Kyrios is more likely to give up a loose service game. He's hitting his 2nd serve really hard, but what comes with that? Double faults. So I think it's much more likely that it's Federer who gets the 6-4 in the match. It's Federer who gets the 7-5 in the match. And that's why I think that Federer wins in 5 sets. Kyrgios can win this match, though. It's going to be a really good match. But I think Federer in 5, and I think that Nick might win maybe at least 1 or 2 tiebreak sets. Maybe he can play exceptionally on one of Federer's service games and grab a break like that. But I love the way, by the way, Federer so comfortable, and Nick timing the ball at night at the Open. I think Federer always plays well in Ashe night sessions. He seems to just crush guys. Never has much of a problem. To me, in the early rounds, Arthur Ashe at night, I think Federer destroys guys. So I also like Federer. I like the conditions a little bit more for Federer. In the daytime, a little bit hotter for Kyrgios' serve, which is more reliant on the miles per hour, less so the craftiness, the placement, the difficulty of reading it, even though Nick's serve is a little bit hard to read too. I would like Nick in the day a little bit more. So that's another reason I think Federer in 5. That's all for me. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.